Nemesis. Log number 5-11. A tragedy happened at a well-known theater in Coruscant. The ownership asked not to disclose the name of. Security of the theater were alerted after the closing hours that they would find the body of an intergalactic criminal, Judo Borealis, at the performance space. The call was made by an anonymous source. Upon re-entering the theater, what they found was a destroyed stage with props and a pool of blood with humanoid remains. The investigation went underway and testing has been done to determine the body belonged to a renowned opera singer by the name of Calypso Blur, a true loss for the art world. We'd like to dedicate today's broadcast to mourn the young life of a talented individual that was horrendously taken away from her, going way too soon. Yet another killing done by a mass murderer Judo that had escaped and was nowhere to be seen after the premises had been thoroughly searched. The pursuit continues. The news report I recorded back when it came out. I was in disbelief too. Now we're at the point in the story where we fully caught up to the present. I'm inside the Rhesus ship, the one we took to Kino, that tiny sphere of a bird with triangle-shaped wings. That time when I was blatantly betrayed and all the cards were laid out on the table right in front of me, showing a full and clear picture. He no longer has any use for this ship since he's armless now, so I decided to claim it. It's a damn good ship after all. What happened to Reese, you ask? Oh, has been here with me all this time, locked up in one of the cabins. The screaming and banging in the background you could hear in the first few logs, that was all his doing. A man at the end of the line. Reese was hysterical for the first few days, screaming nonsense and obscenities, cursing me up and down non-stop. Once he was done with yelling, going from hoarse to losing his voice altogether, once he exhausted all his outbursts and had nothing else left to give, he went mute for a few weeks. Not a peep from that guy. During the first days, while getting acclimated to the new order of operations around the ship, it seemed that he was trying to use some of his Sith Jedi mind tricks on me, but they weren't exactly working since he was severely injured and didn't have arms to conduct the Force through. I've been feeding this beast to keep him alive until I decide what to do with him. Is it out of pity, or the opposite, to see him suffer and fall apart before my eyes? I've yet to come up with a conclusive answer. I would serve the food in the bowl and leave it for him on the floor of the cabin. He would never eat in front of me, but every time I came back later to pick up the bowl, it would be empty, without fault. Every time, licked clean with no crumb to spare. I picture him eating like an animal, down on his knees, mugging the bowl, greedily slurping up the contents of the bowl. I kept him naked. A beast doesn't wear carbs. A beast has no use for them. Everything was on display. He couldn't hide anything from me anymore. All of his scars, burns and injuries were there. The history of Reese Caliber written all over his battered body. He was the last living witness, in a sense, my only alibi left to prove my innocence. With all the time I've had on a run, I started recording these logs to help cope with everything that's happened, to talk through it, to help with loneliness. The pursuit of the mercenaries remained relentless, so we kept moving, staying on the run, flying across the galaxy over and over again. As I've gone through half of the logs I've recorded, it took a few weeks. A month has passed, to be precise, before Reese spoke. When I heard his voice, I thought I was hallucinating at first. It's been a while since I've heard somebody else's speech besides mine, and my thoughts arguing with me continuously, which I was having a hard time distinguishing between the two at that point. And let me tell you this, when he started speaking, he wouldn't shut his mouth, words spewing like diarrhea. With the valve being released, it all just kept coming out. He had nothing else to do, being an armless prisoner aboard his own spaceship, mine now technically. And truly, I didn't mind. I've learned a lot, the whole new perspective on his youth. He still swears through his teeth that he will brutally kill me when he gets a chance. But hey, aren't we all a bit ahead of ourselves and wishful? Yet we still manage to keep our conversations civil, despite all the bad blood and not so good history, almost being gentleman-like, warrior to warrior, soldier to soldier, heart to heart. He even told me about that old Iberian's medallion I've all forgotten about, that is a tracking device directly linked to the kyber crystal we stole from him, not just a prized jewel. If you know how to use it, this golden discus will show you a hologram of a stellar map, which you can zoom in and out at your liking. that shows the exact location of said crystal in the universe. Xena and I couldn't figure this one out, unfortunately. Would have made my search for recent Calypso far easier. Could have been one step ahead of them, the one to set up an ambush instead. It explains an extra paranoia on their end, since I was possessing something that can determine their location at any moment. But it worked out how it worked out. I can't be the one to complain while I still have every one of my limbs and continue breathing, unlike my victims. I don't know if he knows, and if he does, I don't know if he cares, but I secretly recorded all of our conversations so you can hear and judge for yourself what kind of a man Reese Caliber is. I don't know myself if you can take everything he says at face value, but I like to remain open-minded. Here goes his ramblings. Nemesis.